Pope Francis has shown us that climate change is not a narrow political issue, that it really is the moral issue of our time. And our presence here today, I think, demonstrates that. It's an issue that transcends partisanship and ideology. And with all the faiths gathered here today, it's an issue that transcends even the ways in which we know God. So we're gathering here today as the sun is about to set, and we're all hopeful in many ways for the dawn of a new day. We will listen to the faith leaders who have gathered, who will be reflecting on different messages from Pope Francis's climate change encyclical Laudato Si.
The Earth is more than a spinning orb traveling through space. The Earth is a living organism, and each creature is sacred and created by God. So we must not abuse our technological power and rule the Earth as tyrants. In Genesis, God created the world and said that it was good. I believe Pope Francis has made us all aware that we too must look upon the world and creation and see that it is good, not a commodity to be exploited. We have a social and political imperative to act. We now have a moral imperative to act.
Creation care is indeed a gospel issue. By caring for creation, we will care for what Pope Francis has called our common home. However, to do so effectively, we must recognize that our common home has big problems, big, urgent problems. Again, in the words of the Lausanne movement, we are faced with a crisis that is pressing, urgent, and that must be resolved in our generation. Along with Pope Francis, we recognize the irreplaceable treasure of creation, and in particular of this world that is our common home. It is a common home shared by all of us, rich and poor, north and south, developed and developing, red and yellow, black and white. It is our common home, not just shared with other humans, but also with all other living things, from microscopic blue algae to gargantuan blue whales. It is our common home by design and origin. In the beginning, God created. In the beginning, God delegated. Foundationally and fundamentally, God has given us responsibility to care for our common home.
For me, a powerful piece of the Pope's message is that he connects the various crises of our day. As he says in the encyclical, everything is connected. We are faced not with two separate crises, one environmental and the other social, but rather with one complex crisis, which is both social and environmental. This connection is not new and not exclusively in the realm of the Catholic Church. The classical rabbis of my tradition connected the biblical commandment of not destroying trees that we find in Deuteronomy to prohibitions against conspicuous consumption by humans. How we treat the earth and how we function socially have and always will be linked.
The earth is our mother, and she is to be honored and respected. And we are to show the same respect and honor to all our relations, the two-leggeds, the four-leggeds, the winged ones, the swimmers, who are our first teachers, and to the rocks and the plants and the trees and the earth. All of these existed before us. They did very well before we got here. We need them in order to survive, not the other way around. One principle of the encyclical reminds us that the world is fragile, and we are challenged to develop, direct, and limit our power. In the native way, we were invited only to take from the earth what is needed and no other thing more. We are told that nobody owns the earth. It is given to us to share and to care for. We journey through this world, but we are to leave no tracks. We are to care for each other and all of life, and make decisions about the use of resources, about the relationships we have with others, about the earth that we inhabit, mindful that our actions will affect not just us, but all the way forward to the 7th generation. Embodying submission to God, cleaning of all impurities, letting go of all worldly attachments, and witnessing unity. I see these messages included in Pope Francis's encyclical, which I support. I also see similarity between the encyclical and the 2015 Islamic Declaration on Global Climate Change. I will talk briefly about the climate refugees crisis. According to the National Geographic, climate refugees are people who must leave their homes and communities because of the effects of climate change and global warming. Who are those people? Pope Francis stated in the encyclical, point number 25, many of the poor live in areas particularly affected by phenomena related to warming. Rising sea levels already cause problems in low-lying coastal areas of the world. Sea level rise may sink all 1,200 islands of Maldives. This would force all Maldivians to find new places to live. Scientists predict Bangladesh will lose 17% of its land by 2050 due to flooding caused by climate change. The loss of land could lead to as many as 20 million climate refugees from Bangladesh. As Pope Francis said today in his address to the US Congress regarding the refugee crisis, we must not be taken aback by their numbers, but rather view them as persons, seeing their faces and listening to their stories.
As members of this beautiful human family, we seek meaningful commitments from our leaders and ourselves to address climate change for our shared future, the Earth and all species, and the generations to come. We see this Earth as a stunning gift that supports life. It is our only home. Let us care for it together.
The lives of people living on shrinking islands due to rising seas, due to climate change, due to our consumer-based habits and lives, those lives are holy and do not deserve to be thrown away. The lives of our siblings of color and our siblings living in poverty, who are at best often spent in unhealthy living environments, among toxins needed to create the stuff some of us want or even think we need. And at worst, those lives are treated as expendable. They are moved into jails and prisons at wildly disproportionate rates as they respond to the desperation in which they live that we have created. These lives too are holy, and they do not deserve to be thrown away. May we learn to see the holy in all of us, and in seeing, be moved to treat all as holy in faith and in
Not
love.
just a solution for this nation or that group, but a solution that takes into consideration how all people, all waters, all lands, all beings can work together to create a harmony that is so much more beautiful than any single melody could be. We must stand together, raise our voices and the voices of those who are less likely to be heard, the voices of the children, the elderly, the disabled, and all the nonverbal parts of the creation, the beasts and the fields, the air and the seas. For again we recall that we in this time and in this place are precious, but we are only part of the story. God's dream, in order to be complete in all its beauty and mystery, must be cherished in its entirety.
Jesus' message underscores the importance of the Christian's duty to remember that our actions and our work should involve an appreciation and an anticipation of the future. The question we must answer is, what kind of world do we want to leave to those who come after us? To children who are now growing up. In order to leave behind, we must be intentional caretakers of the world God has given us. We must participate in small ways with recycling, learning how to use compost, driving less, and appreciating the beauty of nature. But we must also think nationally and internationally. We want to leave a world that is interconnected and understands that what pollutes in China can impact our world in America. There is no wall that can separate us from the devastation impacts of global warming and the rising of the seas. It will impact all of humanity. So if we plan to leave a world that is colorful, beautiful, and resourceful, then we must begin to make radical change and wake up our communities up so that we can participate in social, political, and environmental change.
Something from the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 31, the first part, and it says, "Then God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good." How many of you agree with God that what he made is indeed very good? And I just want you to look behind you. That's what God made. And that's what we're trying to protect. Something from the encyclical. And it says, all Christian communities, and I'm going to say all communities, have an important role to play in ecological education. Local individuals and groups can make a real difference. As individuals and as a community, we don't have to wait for a constitution or for Congress to enact a law in order for us to start acting. We can start acting today. We can do something today without waiting for the government, or without waiting for a law, or without waiting for a vote to be passed in order for us to do what's right. We can act now. We know what is right and we know what is wrong. So what we need to do is simple. Let us do what is right and let us stop doing what is wrong. In order to make this world a beautiful place, or to continue living in the world that is a beautiful place, we cannot wait, because there is not a due date. If we don't take care of what we have now, we are not going to have anything to take care. Right now we see in the sign that it says Laudato Si. That actually means praise you. And I want to ask you a question. How can we praise God when we don't take care of the creation that he has given us? How can we say that we are praising God when we are mistreating the creation that he himself said that was very good, indeed was very good? If we really want to say Laudato Si, we need to say with our actions. We need to start walking the walk and not just talking the talk. I think we have had that discussion. We know what the issues are. And it's time not to just continue with the discussion. It's time to start acting. It's time to start doing. We can start at home. Like my colleagues said, we can start doing something at home. We can start recycling. We can maybe start riding the bicycles more often. We can start doing a lot of different things that, even though might seem small, if we do it as a whole, can have a great impact. May God bless you.